Do 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 do. It is time. It is time again. It is the month of March. It is Women's Empowerment Month. I want to say, God bless you. Bless you to all of the ladies out there in everyone's lives. First off, I want to start off this saying, give a promotional shout out to my mother, because if it wasn't for her and all of the showing the foundations and the great things she's done for me and my brothers, I wouldn't be here right now, which means right now I'm wearing one of the first shirts I ever gave her. This merchandise is called Lois's Beauty Box, established in '86. And it's from there where she started to become a beautician. It showed me how to hustle, how to get the grind on, how to do businesses. And when I first started mine up, I gave her merchandise, which is something that her business never had. So that's why I wanted to start this show off in the month of March, the year of 2023. Now, I usually start my show off with a quote: change, real change comes from the inside out. That is from Mr. Stephen Covey. Good day, my good and gracious people. I want to say to all of you, I hope all is well with everyone, no matter if this is your first time listening or it's your next time listening. I do appreciate your continue to check in and show support either way it goes. Continue to show that support for me and my guests. We will appreciate that support. We continue to appreciate that support because in the end, we all will win. That is the purpose, that we all win. I say this all the time. Today is a special episode. And you know why I say today is a special episode. It's a special episode because you are here. My guest is here. I am here. We all are here. That's what makes it a special episode. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I say thank you for being here. Right now, I want to do what I do best. I want to introduce a pillar of the musical foundation, a London-born vocalist, a violinist and music and multi-instrumental, Mr. Owen Valentine. He's been touring major venues around the world since the late 80s. He has influence including Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Wonder, John Coltrane, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Bob Marley. His high energy performances are noted for their constant innovation and unique originality compositions. His extensive performance backgrounds include some work with, I hope I get their names right, Sun Ra. Yeah, Sun Ra. Hey, I was close to it. Jill Scott Heron. Stanley Scott Jordan. Yeah. See, hey.
Okay.
It's in the try. It's not in the mess up. It's in the try. Stanley Jordan. Yeah. Jason Samuel Smith. KAMASI Washington. He was free. Hey, that's what I said. KAMASI Washington.
Okay.
He was featured on legendary artist projects such as Talib Kweli and Comet. Mm-hmm. He is one of the first violinists. Let me say that again. He's one of the first violinists to perform and record with hip hop groups. And to my knowledge, to this standing, he is the only African American to perform with Ireland's national group, the Chieftains. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Owen Valentine. Yeah. Owen, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, sir, to join me on the podcast today. How's everything going for you?
It's awesome every day. Every day I get up, I feel love, I feel music, and that makes it a great day. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm honored to be on your show.
That is awesome. I usually start the show off with 3 questions. I just asked one. My next question is, how are you doing mentally?
That's a wonderful question because, I think all of us have had a strange out-of-body 2 years. So I would say that coming into this year is probably the most normal that I have felt in a while. I would say I feel healthy. I would say I feel inspired to not only help my fellow artists, but to my listeners and all of the people who need some kind of love passed on to them. And I feel like part of my journey here is to keep spreading good energy and love to those other people. So I'm motivated. That's where I am mentally. I am motivated. I'm feeling stronger. I think that this is a year of incredible change and making incredible steps. So I'm motivated. I'm hopeful. I'm happy.
I love that. The next question is, how do you manage it? What do you do to manage it?
I get up every morning and start my day. I take out a little card. Well, not every morning, to be completely honest. But most mornings I wake up, take a little card out, and I sit and I think, and I allow my brain to just relax. And I wait for an idea, and I write that idea down. And to me, this is my way of grounding myself because I'm always looking forward. Not that I can't remember what happened, but I want to think what is going to happen next. So I write down a great idea every morning. And I would say I've got a couple hundred ideas written down in my little box, which are all great and wonderful ideas. I write down my goals. I like to come up with a plan. It may not always work that day, but I start with a plan. And consistency. Consistency is important for me. Consistency in how I eat, consistency in my music. I play a variety of instruments. You can see behind me there is a piano. It's a Seiler Grand. Sometimes it's getting to the piano first. Sometimes it's the violin first. Might be harmonica, might be saxophone, whatever it is. But I get to the instruments or bass, and I get to all these instruments first. And it's my way. Some people sit and they pray like this. I pray like this. I pray like this. I pray
with the music.
Like this. You know, it's right. So, and there is a divine connection that I feel when I'm practicing. And so, like some of my influences, John Coltrane, Sun Ra, people like that who were insistent upon like that if that's your chosen path of divine connection, you got to do it every morning. So I get up and I pray through my instruments. You know, that's a part of how I hold it together. That's a way of focusing me and my way of connecting with the divine. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I'm glad you gave me some of that background because it helps me segue to the next question. Mm-hmm. Who exactly is Owen Valentine?
Mutant. I was going to say a mutant, but I don't think we're allowed to say that yet. Well, they may come.
Well, sometimes I tell people, hey, I think I'm an alien because I do things differently from how people think it should be done. So you can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself.
Well, I will tell you that who I am first is I am a person of love, and I'm definitely a love warrior. I'm fighting for the love of myself, love of people, the love of my community, the love of my world, and the love of worlds I haven't even seen yet. I'm just trying to strengthen my love every day. So how does that relate to the physical? He is somebody who gets literally, I get inspired from above, I get inspired from within, and I get inspired from what's around me. So I mentioned Sun Ra, and Sun Ra was my mentor. And I was fortunate to play violin and perform with him, dance, learn and study and be trained under him. And he was, for an African descended person, he was a person who told people roughly 70 years ago that he wasn't from this planet. He told people he was from Saturn. And he starts this whole Afrofuturistic, Afro-punk, Afro-this, that kind of thing, that his students, people who were watching him, sitting under watching him, like Earth, Wind and Fire, like George Clinton of P-Funk and Parliament-Funkadelic and so many other things, people were like going, whoa, what's he talking about? Black people from outer space? And it became a part of the lure of his name and of his band. So I'm also definitely a Sun Ra protege. And I feel that there's a certain part of us that is from within and there's a certain part that is from without. So I'm going to claim it all. I'm going to claim it all. Yeah. So a spirit, I am a spirit, a love person, a person who wants to continue to transform until I am transformed.
So growing up with the name like Valentine, because my last name is Bach, so we have those unique names that transcends everything that everyone has to use them for. So with my last name like Box, you know all the jokes and puns that come with the last name like Box. You have one of those unique names also, which is also the title of this episode. I called you A Vintage Valentine because throughout your years, you look at it as it's a vintage Valentine, and you just described yourself also with the amount of love that you have for not just yourself, but the environment, for music, and just being. I think the title of this episode was prophetically picked, given to me, A Vintage Valentine. How long did it take for you to come to terms with, I have a cool last name?
Well, I'm gonna give you a few transformations. So Owen Valentine is my stage name. Owen means well-born. It also means prince. And I was born with that name. And I started to use what my name meant, but then some other gentleman was already using the name Prince. And we both sang high. We both played a lot of instruments. And I said, I can't use my name. So my birth name, which I will leave out of the discussion, but I will say that I was once called Fiddler. People used to call me the Fiddler. And if you look on certain recordings, you'll see it says the Fiddler or something like that. And I chose that out of respect for so many of the Africans who wound up playing on plantations, who were playing fiddle on their plantations. And I chose it out of respect for them to signify that that was really the first musical job in this culture here in the United States. And I went from being called the Fiddler, and I was doing that with groups like Surface. And I think they called me that with P-Funk and a few other groups. I went from that to Fiddler, and Fiddler became the name I used for a while. So when we finally get to Owen Valentine, the connotation is love, but it also has one more connotation, and that means healthy and strong. And so I've been in the martial arts since I was 9 years old. I've run 20 miles in 2 hours. I have had amazing physical accomplishments. I just got my professional scuba diver certification, all kinds of.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've been blessed to just have an amazing physical, joyous time here. So healthy, strong, youthful. I said, those two go together. And once I put Owen and Valentine together, a lot of doors opened up. A lot of people said, Owen Valentine. I like that. What can I do with that?
It's catchy.
We didn't want Fiddler, but we want Owen Valentine. So hire him to play and perform for us. So it has opened some doors. And I think the connotation of love works for me, because that's what I want everyone to get from me. When my concerts, I want them to walk out feeling loved. I want them to walk out feeling wonderful, that all kinds of things were moved in them, and that the journey of their life was improved by sitting in the audience. Yeah.
Man, I wonder how that Prince fella turned out.
I wonder how it did. He did.
Yeah, wonder how that Prince fella turned out.
He did really well. He did really well.
Yeah,
he was a little outspoken, though. I think he attracted the attention of a few people, maybe not so savory.
Yeah, so wonder how that got turned out. So, y'all may have to do a little research on who we're talking about. But, right now I'm talking to the Prince of Healthy and Strong, so that works for me. Looking at your bio, I see that you was born into music because it came from mom and dad as well. Right. What are some of your earliest memories with music?
I believe the first time I performed in front of an audience was actually singing at a church. And I believe I sang A Puppy Under the Christmas Tree. And
A puppy under the Christmas tree?
Listen, I could not sing that song if you paid me right now, but supposedly that was the first song I performed. But I remember on long trips with my mother, who was someone who was accepted at Juilliard. And she had a pianist who used to play and accompany her from time to time when she was in New York. This is many years ago. This pianist, his name was, I can't remember what the real name is, but his stage name is Barry Manilow. So she had all of these people around her who constantly loved her instrument, but she was head set on doing classical music. And that didn't turn out so well for her. You know, she loved it, but it didn't love her. She had a marvelous voice. My father was a dentist, but he was also a trumpeter. And so he was a jazz trumpeter. So many of the jazz musicians of the 60s and 70s, my father fixed their teeth and made them dentures and crowns and a variety of other things. So Dad was an all-around dentist. He could do it all, you know. So having memories of that, he eventually introduces me to one of his close childhood friends, a man named George Braith, who's still with us, amazingly, so in his 80s. But this is a contemporary of John Coltrane and a contemporary of Sonny Rollins, who they played together, and Miles Davis as well. So I've had some good influences. I've had some.
So you actually got to hear Miles Davis?
No, believe it or not, I had an opportunity to tour with Miles Davis once, and I turned it down because I had a family. I had opportunity to spend time with my family or tour with Miles in Japan, and I chose to spend that time with my family. You know, I should have gone with Miles.
I don't know, though. Just listening to how you enjoy love in the environment, I think you made the right choice by being with the family.
It's an interesting, an interesting story.
It's an interesting concept because you could have had a lot of. I've read and heard a lot of stories about Miles Davis, so that's what I'm saying. It's an interesting concept. So either way it go, you still have the opportunity to tell your story. I turned Miles Davis down.
Yeah, right. Well, it gets worse than that. I also once had to turn down Luther Vandross, who asked me to join him in singing background for Stevie Wonder during a performance.
But I don't see it as being worse. I just see it as those opportunities that wasn't the right time, the perfect timing. It wasn't the right time for you, but at least they knew who you were to ask you.
Amazing. So I'm still amazed at that. Yes. Yeah.
That's the story that you're still here to tell.
Yes.
Miles Davis asked me to sing with him one time. I had to turn him down, though. You turned down Miles Davis? You turned down Luther? So that's how I look at it. And that's,
I like the way you just spun that. I'm going to say it like that.
Yeah. So breaking news here. Mr. Valentine turned down Miles Davis and he turned down Luther. So, when they want to break some news, they come to Hill Out on the podcast.
They may come for me with the net when that gets out. Like, hey, what?
Yeah. So, but it's a good thing though, because like I said, gives you the opportunity to be known as well as you are, to be able to say, hey, I chose a different name because I allowed Prince to have his name. Yeah. So it's the stories that you can tell and how you can tell
What a
them.
Wonderful spin on that one. I love it. You just took me all the way there.
I mean, so it's worth it because I was listening to the way you said Owen said means Prince, so you still called yourself Prince. It's just in a different way. And you chose Valentine because it means heal and health. So you're the Prince of healing and health and strength.
Yeah,
it's just you have to look at now when they get through this podcast, they're gonna be like, "Oh, he's the Prince of healing and health and strength." When they read your name, Owen Valentine, that's what it means. Yeah, we just educated y'all.
Yes,
just educated y'all. Getting back to music. What was your first instrument that you actually touched and like, man, this is going to be my instrument forever?
Can I tell that story? The question is, okay. Well, believe it or not, the first instrument that I ever wanted to play was the guitar. And it was the guitar. Yeah. But there was my mother had made a decision that there shall be no more musicians in this family. So that guitar met with an untimely end. After the guitar, I actually got a trombone. And it was something about it. But when I got the violin, it stuck. I was like, whoa, this is different. I can do things with the violin that you can't do on other instruments. And it was very, very close to the human voice. I was already singing. I had already started voice lessons around 16 years of age, and I had a chance to study under some Tony winners and people who were well-known theater and performers at their time, and to be around some amazing people. You know, going back 6 or 7 years before that, when I was 7 or 8 years old, 8 to 9 years old, I met a famous brother who some people said I needed to meet him. So I rode with them in a car to meet this brother. And he just spoke all kinds of wonderful things over my life. And that man was Muhammad Ali. Yeah. And
I read a bunch of Muhammad Ali books, and I think the last one I read, I was overseas at the time, and when I got here, it was during the pandemic. So my plan was, when I read the last book, was to go visit his ranch in Michigan, because he was always welcoming to everyone because of how he grew up. But because of the pandemic, you know, and he had passed during that time too. So I'm like, man, I didn't get a chance to meet Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah.
so I heard a bunch of the stories about him.
Yeah.
So that was that's my story.
He had a great memory, and even through the times that I re-encounter him, he always was like, "Did you do it yet?" You know, like I met you when you were 8 or 9. Now what's going on now? Have you done it yet? And instead, he always, like, it was like the energy would explode, and he always held me accountable. It made me feel like there's something that you are supposed to do that I feel you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to make some differences. So when have you done it yet? So that was the question I got every time I encountered him. I've had a lot of, when I look at it, I've had amazing interactions with some amazing people at different times of my life. And, you know, I hope to honor their memories and honor the energy that they put into me, and pass that love on the other people, and try to motivate them.
Well, I can tell you, we haven't been talking that long, and I see that you've been doing that just by conversation we're having now, and you sharing the stories from the people you've met. You are honoring it, and I know that they're looking down from wherever they are. I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I influenced Mr. Valentine to share everything that he's come in our path to share. You mentioned that meeting Muhammad Ali. I had the opportunity to go see Mr. Dick Gregory before he passed.
Yes.
It was in my transition from, I was on leave from overseas. And so he was in Little Rock, Arkansas, doing his last stand-up comedy, by the way, his last speaking tour. And the night I was going to go, I said, man, I got to go pack. I got to get this ready. And then he died the next day. I said, oh, man. Oh, my goodness. I should have went last night.
I've had a chance to be a part of Mr. Gregory's presentations over the years. I've opened, played the music, done the interludes for performances. I'm sending you some of his energy your way, and sending that to him.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, he's a part of my journey as well. Yes.
I appreciate it. Did you learn different musical styles from being with both of your parents? Because listening to you tell the story about mom and about dad, they both play different instruments. With the different variations of music, were you getting different variations from being with mom and listening to whatever she listened to, and being with dad and whatever he listened to?
I would say that my family, like many families in this diaspora, did not grow up together. So my father was here and I was with mother there. And from my mother, I got an appreciation for just really making a good sound. I think that I got from mom. I got an appreciation of classical music too. I think my dad I don't know if he was sure which direction I would go musically, but he told me, he said, you won't have to reach far. He said, because he says, you got Marley, which is Bob Marley, in your bloodline. He said, because Bob Marley is from St. Anne's, Jamaica, which is where my father's from. And supposedly somewhere through marriage, there's some connections to Bob Marley back in the family tree. Um, my father gave me lots and lots of info to say, when you decide to do it, I won't have to tell you what it is. You'll just do it, you know? So yeah, that has been just I would say some of the greatest influences that happened musically happened very early on, when I realized that there was something that was singing from within me that people wanted to hear. And so the influences were more from outside my family than inside my family. Um, I could go on for hours, literally, just on the number of influences and the number of people who said, you got something there, got a special voice, or there's something about what you do when you're on stage, or there's something about how you make people feel. So yeah, I'm just really glad that my parents gave me the physical apparatus. My voice has held strong through the years. I can hit all the notes and sing higher than most people and lower than most people, and the notes are still working, and the brain is still create incredible music and sound. So yeah, I'm thankful to my parents for the gifts that are inside, and I'm thankful to the Creator for the gifts that are brought down. So yeah.
Do you still listen to vinyl records that you collected from your youth?
Oh wow. I have a vinyl.
My dad has a big collection. That's why I'm asking, because and when I go to certain places, I'm looking at I go to the vinyl record stores like New York, LA, Chicago, because I know they have a big vinyl record collection. I'm only looking for certain ones. I'm not looking for ones that are multiples. I'm looking for certain ones. I'm looking for like old school records, because it's a difference from hearing that old school Temptations or Earth, Wind and Fire that I heard back in the 70s than it is a remaster when it came out like last year. So I'm looking for certain ones that my dad may have grew up on, because I want to give it back to him as a gift, because he may not have it anymore. Okay. So do you still listen to your original records? Because they're priceless now.
I will be honest, I haven't listened. I have a great record player. I haven't listened to them that way because of the convenience of streaming and what's on my phone. I have a great collection. I have like Aretha. I have Luther Vandross's first album, not the one that you know from Change. His very first album. He's got an afro and zits, and he looks like he's about 17 years old.
I see. That's why I asked, because back then the records used to come out, and there would be 4 to 5 songs on them. Versus, in the 80s to 90s, they would come out and it'd be almost like an EP, 8 to 10 songs on them. But those records that used to come out, you can't hardly find them anymore.
Yes. And that
would be their first record.
Right. And a lot of those songs are like there might be a gem hidden in there. In working with other singers, I've shown them songs. I was like, okay, I learned this song like 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And here's one. You will not find it on Apple or on Spotify or something like that. It's a rare song. And I'm also a songwriter, so a lot of my music has been influenced by listening to all those records. And I would say there was a period of my life where I listened 4 hours a day. That wasn't your hands on the instrument. That was listening, actively listening about 4 hours a day, so yeah.
I can understand that, because I watch YouTube and I watch just interviews of people doing other interviews, because that helps me know how to do interviews myself. And so I'm picking up and looking and say, okay, let me see how they interviewed. Even the nighttime TV shows, let me see how they interview. Let me see the pauses they took. Let me see how they listened. Let me see how they came back with certain jokes. Let me see what made it interesting. Let me see what kept the conversation going. Let me see when they went to break. Let me see how the reaction of the guests reacted to certain things you said. Let me see how certain questions they asked. So for me, that is my music. Let me see what type of music they use. So that's my music. and it's also just me adding myself to that platform. So that's why I usually tell people you have to be you, because you have to. You also have to find out who you are. So,
and it's also good to know what steps happen before you. So it gives you a clue. Maybe I want to step in those shoes. Maybe I want to step on the side of it.
Yep, because if those shoes you try to walk in hurt, get you some brand new shoes. They may not be your size.
Yeah, absolutely.
Besides being a full-time musician, what else did you want to be growing up?
A physician. A doctor.
A physician? I can see that.
And also a chef. And so to this day, I'm still very serious about food. I have done some things in my day, where food was part of how I made my income. And I know my way around the kitchen and the bakery and the I know food, and I went to school for biology first, Yeah.
It's interesting.
So I put some time in. There's a side of my life which, since my mother always wanted to have a doctor in the family, she got it. I just became a different kind of doctor. So I'm in natural medicine. So I spend a lot of time studying that. But I find that studying medicine and studying natural medicine and herbs and healing and understanding how the body works in line with studying music. Like they talk to each other. They help each other.
I think most people before his death got into a lot of the natural medicine through Dr. Sebi, because he was one of the first ones through Instagram when all that started popping up before the pandemic about eating natural health, and people that started redirecting to that. Dr. Sebi was the main one that they would see on Instagram, because he was one of the main ones I would see pop up in the feed. I'm like, man, who is this guy? And I started doing some research on him and started reading some of his healthy books. What is your go-to dish for when you just want to eat something, whether it be healthy or it be a cheat meal? What are your go-to dishes there, Dr. Food?
Dr. Food. Yeah. Let me also give a recognizing to the spirit of Dr. Sebi and Dr. Frank Wyatt and Dr. Africa and many of the others who have also, shared their energy on this planet and wellness. Like, we're all here trying to understand something that is one of the most amazing things ever created, which is the human body, and understanding it. And we're all coming to our own realities. I can remember sitting down with Dr. Sebi many years ago, and there would be like a surrounding of people just talking with him and sharing energies. He's very outspoken, very definitely had his thoughts. This is before I would say many people knew who he was, but that energy was undeniable and strong. I'm so honored to have been in his countenance. I want to say that to all of the people who are healers who are listening to this, never stop, keep going and doing what you're doing, finding your own path inside your natural path, because it's not the same for everybody. I was a vegetarian for many years, and then eventually I discovered it didn't work for my body. It worked for some people, but it didn't work for me, so right. So I had to add in a lot of things I took out. Now, still, there's no preservatives, there's no dyes, there's no coloring agents. I still prefer to grow my own food, but I had to put meat back in my diet because my body needed it. It was not allowing me to do the things that I desired to do. And I saw myself getting weaker and weaker. I said, listen, what you're learning is that no path is the same for everybody. Some people need to be, they need to eat grass. And I can tell you I can use the other word and take the G and R off of it. Some people need to eat, pick a word.
You're
pick
good.
A word. Pick a word.
Use your imagination, everybody.
Yeah, we all need to eat different things, and we all need to drink different things. And so now having precursed all of that, wow. I think, With fondness, I can think of a Jamaican breakfast with some sawfish and ackee and uh, and boiled banana and breadfruit. If I had to think of a meal that had some semblance of like, if that would be like a cheat meal that I would actually make me feel good right now. Yeah, it would be a traditional Jamaican breakfast. It's the full spread. Lay it all out there. Yeah.
You mentioned something about the vegetarian, because I only eat chicken, fish,
hmm
and
hmm
turkey.
Okay.
When I go see my parents, then
Uh-huh.
I will eat probably beef and pork, but I don't
hmm
really eat beef and pork that much. And
Okay.
I tell
Okay.
people all the time, I said,
hmm
you have to eat what's good for your body.
Come
I said,
on.
because you're
hmm
watching gurus and everybody else eat, and they're
hmm
telling you, hey, don't eat this, don't eat that. I
Yeah.
said, but
Yeah.
you may need that for
hmm
your body. I said,
Come
true
on now.
enough, if you're a diabetic, they're not
Uh-huh.
telling you don't eat the whole cake. They're not telling you eat the cake. They're telling you just
Right.
don't eat the whole cake. So
Right.
you have to
Yeah.
learn how to hold back from eating the entire triple
Right.
layer cake and just eating
hmm
a
hmm
piece of the cake.
hmm
And so,
hmm
but that's
Yeah.
what I tell people all the time. You have
You
to
have to
eat
eat
what
for
your
who
body
you are.
needs.
You have to eat for
Exactly.
who you are. I'm gonna say another one. This is your health lesson for the people who are listening. You have to eat for who you are. You have to eat for what you're doing, and you have to eat for where you are. Because if you're
Yep.
living in Alaska, eating like you're living at the equator, then something is wrong. When it's really cold, your body burns calories and fats slightly different. Your body's needs increase. You have to eat for what you're doing. If you're a farmer, you're not expected to eat the same as a person who maybe sits at a desk for 8 hours a day. So you really have to study how your body processes what you're eating, where you're eating, when you're eating, why you're eating. You know,
That is
from
true.
yeah.
I'll also tell people, I say, it's okay to drink water, but you
hmm
also have to have some electrolytes because you can overhydrate yourself. You have to have
hmm
something else
hmm
besides just drinking water to keep those electrolytes in your system. I said,
hmm
because I drink water, but I still have to
hmm
have something that has electrolytes. I don't have to overindulge on the
hmm
electrolytes, but my
hmm
entire life has always been water's my go-to. Now that doesn't
hmm
mean I don't have the occasional Coke, soda, or pop,
hmm
wherever you're from. I just covered all of those: soda, Coke,
hmm
pop, because that's what they
hmm
call it in all different locations. But
hmm
water is my go-to.
Yes. Hmm
Of course, the sweet tea too.
hmm
I gotta have some sweet tea.
Okay. Okay.
Also, reason I asked what's your go-to meal is
hmm
because I watched a documentary and also read the book called How on the Hog.
hmm
And if you haven't seen it,
I haven't.
uh, cooking in Africa.
hmm
It talks because I'm a yam guy,
hmm
but it showed me what the actual yam is when it's grown in Africa
hmm
versus what they're showing you in the United States. And it goes around talking about the African heritage and a lot of things from history that's not been talked. And it's called How on the
You
Hog.
know what? They do a special on that where they talk about food down south and the traditions, the Guinea traditions and such and such. I have seen something about that book. I have.
Yeah.
hmm
And it's real interesting. And I was like, man, I need to try some of that food. That food looked good. And it looks healthy too. And that brings me to how does one become interested in studies in uh, African and South Indian
Carnatic,
Carnatic
music.
music. Yeah. I knew I was going to mess that
Yeah,
word up.
that's okay. It refers to what I would call that's the Indian way of saying that their music is very ornate, that it moves around a lot. In fact, Carnatic music would be the Indian version of gospel music here. Like their
Okay.
music has a lot of movement in it, and the lines are moving, and there's very intricate rhythms and things that are very similar in concept, not in style, but in concept, the, to some of the things that you hear in American gospel. Um, I must say that in my listening, I kept hearing sounds that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Like, what is that? And where does that come from? And where does this come from? And so the more you listen and the more you start to listen and learn about a people's journey from many places, you start to realize that everything has a root. And the root of many things that happen in American music start in Africa. And a lot of influences in pop music start in India. So I went and found a teacher, an amazing teacher, and sat on the floor for 5 or 6 years with a violin stuck in the edge of my sock, the tip of it in the sock, and played the violin upside down like they do in South India, and studied that. I was fortunate to study some African music under some great African drummers, Bob Crowder. I was fortunate to play with Babatunde Olatunji. That's a name.
Babatunde Olatunji.
Yeah, I said, look.
Say that again.
Listen, now, how did you get that? That's the hardest one, and you got that first time. First time. You even said it like that's because you just left the continent.
But that's because you said it and I was able to repeat it. But if I'm looking at it, then I'm pretty good with names. Right. So, I get as close as I can, but you said it, so I'm able to repeat it.
Babatunde Olatunji is considered the father of modern African drum. He's considered the father of the drum. And he had a hit-selling record back in the 60s called The Drum. And many people borrowed from this music, and it kind of brought African drumming into the forefront of modern culture and modern pop culture. And I was fortunate to work and perform with Babatunde Olatunji in the late 90s, I apologize, the late 90s, when I was the music director for the Million Woman March. And Babatunde made the journey over. And we played the introduction together for Mama Mandela. And we had opportunity to work together. That recording could be found on CNN. Up until very recently, you could just go on CNN and plug in the Million Woman March, and you would hear the drum and a violin playing together. I don't know what's happened to it since then. Many things I've learned to value, I wish I had done first. I should have recorded it for myself at the time. I also had opportunity to rehearse and perform one time with Fela Kuti.
Fela Kuti.
Good, excellent. Yeah, Fela Kuti. Yeah. So I will say that if you don't know the root of your music, then it's hard to understand the journey. So you got to go back. If you're going to play black music, if you're going to play jazz, if you're going to play blues, if you're going to play gospel, if you're going to play reggae, you need to have some familiarity with the roots of all those musics, which can be found back in the motherland. So I've performed with several acts that were specialized in that music, the music of the Congo, the music of Ghana, the music of Senegal, the music, South African music. I had a chance to perform with Bakiti Kumalo. Let me hear you say that.
Bakiti Tamalo.
Very close.
Bakiti Tamalo.
Bakiti.
Oh, Bakiti Malo.
Kumalo.
Oh, I didn't hear all that. Bakiti Kumalo.
Oh, exactly. So I had a chance to.
Bakiti Kumalo.
So he's a well-known bass player out of South Africa. Many people would know him from Paul Simon and other things like that. But just over the years, I've had a relationship with African music. And back when the Roots were a foundation group here in Philadelphia, and you could see them performing like almost every week, they had an event called the Black Lily. And because I was teaching a lot of the younger hip hop artists, I kind of had an open door there. So people would walk me in, sit my big pillow down next to the bed, and I would turn the violin upside down and play Indian raga style across the hip hop beats that were going on at the time. And why did I tell you that? I told you that because, oh God, it's gone just like that. We'll see if it pops back.
Well, well, you told me that because history shows that you're one of the first violinists to ever play with a hip hop group.
Right. Yeah. Back when it was looked at as, why would you do that? Yep. Yes. Yeah.
History also shows that you're one of the, as I mentioned earlier. How did you end up playing with the Chieftains?
Okay. For those who don't know the Chieftains, if you've ever watched a movie called The Titanic, they go down below the deck at a certain part of the certain part in the movie, and there's this band playing. You hear this Irish music playing, and that was the Chieftains. The Chieftains are the Chieftains are that's like, if you're going to a big giant Irish thing, if you're going to have like 50,000 Irish people there, then that you want to hear the music of the Chieftains. So they are very influential in terms of Irish music. So I was singing background on a track, and they needed some voices. I've actually sung and performed with them a few times, but this particular one time, they remembered that I was a violinist, and they said, let's have some fun. And I said, okay, what would you like to do? And they said, well, I'm going to teach you one of our songs. I said, great. They said, and what they did was they turned all the lights off, and they have me playing their music. So the lights went down, and you're like, oh, okay, they're playing the music, and the whole audience is jamming. Yeah, jamming. And then the lights come up, and he goes, go, Letty, go. And I walk out to the edge of the stage, and it's a whole audience of Irish people, and I'm standing on the edge of the stage playing their music. And then the rest of the band comes up behind me. And that's a moment I'll never forget. It was a moment I'll never forget, because it was very special. It was a crossing of cultures. There's also, if you do your history, there's also some evidence that some of those African string players made their way into Ireland early on, and some people from what we now know as Ireland made their way down into Africa. So there are bagpipes in Africa, and kora-like instruments from Africa in Ireland. So there was a lot of cross-pollination in those days.
I am going to have to look it up. I did look up the Chieftains, and this is their 61st anniversary of when they began.
Yes.
2023 is the 61st anniversary of the Chieftains. I'm glad you explained that, because now I don't have to read everything that they did.
Right. Now you'll be able to go, oh, I've heard this. Every time you heard some Irish music on this movie and that movie and whatever. Now, it would have been much better if I had been in the band playing the Titanic. But
Yeah, and they would have did that scene where you walked out playing.
Yeah, right. Awesome. It'd be like,
But I will tell you that the Chieftains are the first Western musicians to perform on the Great Wall of China.
Right.
I did find that out.
Yeah.
So for all of you, that is some history over the group that he's played with. I would relate it to watching Run DMC and Aerosmith perform Walk That Way for the first time, because that was a clash of different genres that everybody looked at like, why is this happening? But as you look back on history, it was a great moment in history because it did happen.
Right. Early, many years ago, playing with Parliament-Funkadelic. And you're familiar with P-Funk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a child, I'm listening to Flashlight. I remember the first time I heard it come on. And to years later, be working with that group playing Flashlight, was
if I could play it, I'd play it, but it's copyrighted, so I can't play it. I can't play it. Yeah.
Exactly.
We can do that, but
a lot of people don't know that the concept of Flashlight was originally like a revolutionary song.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It was about like turning the flashlight on the government, turning the flashlight on what's happening in the world, flashlight and Watergate, flashlight and all these kind of things. So that's what it was about. And it gives
great inside knowledge.
And it gives credit also you'll hear Bernie's on the funk, Bernie's on this, and they were talking about Bernie Worrell, who was also a pleasure to work with. And Bernie has gone on into the great beyond. But he's 90% of Flashlight is one person, and his name is Bernie Worrell. And he was the master of keys and synthesizers and other such things, and a really nice person. Yeah.
Your journey has been very interesting. Vocal range, SCAT vocals.
Hmm.
How long does it take for one to master the levels of vocalism that you have?
How long has it taken me? Many decades. How long should it take? I think I think you can learn a lot of it in 5, 6 years. I've been fortunate. Like I want you to imagine the person who's known as the queen of scat is Ella Fitzgerald, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a chance to spend a day with her, and also a day with Betty Carter, another one of the queens of scat. And I've been influenced by so many amazing vocalists over time. And I can tell you that each one gave me a little tiny something. A lot of people don't know Aretha Franklin was quite a vocal improviser. She could scat too. She had a huge jazz background. So I spent some time with Aretha. And so all of these things gave me something to add to when it comes time to improvise. I've taken most of the things that I've learned, all of the things I've learned, and started to condense it into a book. And I'm condensing it into a series. I teach a thing called SCAT Camp, where I invite people to come in. And they come in for a day, and we spend a day working on the fundamentals, not just of scatting, but of taking care of their voice, and maybe a few life things on the side too. And we have an amazing day of singing. So one day I can give you something that will change how you scat. If if I had a week, I can teach you a lot. I had Mary J. Blige for 3 years, and during the latter part of our association, um, I got to hear her scatting and doing some things. I said, "Yeah, that's right out the playbook. Go, go, go."
You,
Hmm.
you didn't have Good Morning Gorgeous, though, did you? Good Morning Gorgeous. You know, that's off her new album. That's what
I
I was saying.
know.
Good Morning Gorgeous. So, yeah, you didn't have Miss
No,
Good Morning,
no,
Miss
yeah.
411 there.
I'm, I worked with her up until about 2003 or four, right up and around there. So I'm part of the transitional period of her learning, because she starts to transition a lot between 99 and 2003. Those are really big transitional years. So that's when I come on
Yep.
board. Hmm.
A
Yeah.
lot of people remember Mary because of the Heartbreak album she had released. They were like, "Oh, I remember that album she brought out right there. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
transition. Yeah,
Right.
what was
Right.
that?
Yeah.
2003? Yep, that's the one. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh,
And Family Affair and
yeah.
a whole lot of things. Yeah. If you go online and pull up that album, you'll hear her taking some chances on some things. She does some things on that album that were, um, hmm, that right before that album and right after that album, you'll hear her doing some things that you don't hear her doing so much now. And that was the jazz influence of having a jazz based teacher in her camp all the time. Hmm. Yeah.
So from 2000 is when she started getting into a few movies too. So, uh, and think a few of those movies she was able to do a lot of the singing in, so it helped her
Hmm.
enhance some of the
Hmm.
teachings you was giving her. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that works. I'm glad
Hmm.
you brought up Scat Camp because now I don't have to ask about Scat Camp because I was going to ask you
Ah.
what is Scat Camp. So I appreciate you
Mhm.
going ahead and elaborating on what Scat Camp is, but what
Mhm.
uh, motivated you to create just Scat Camp, period.
Mhm. Well, there's okay. So we'll backtrack a little bit. I've been teaching voice a long time. Had a chance to be the voice coach, the voice teacher, the voice therapist with so many people from, like, I mentioned Mary J. and Little Kim, Teddy Pendergrass, Blue Notes, and I mean I can go on, Mario, and you just name somebody. I've been called in as a consultant for Chic and for Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder. Like, if you got a vocal issue, I'm the guy that gets called. So at least I set the model up. Now there's thousands of them. They've popped up everywhere. I brought a more medical and a more lifestyle, more of a kung fu approach to how I work with people. So we got to go all the
Bring
way
an all
back
around
there.
approach.
Right,
All around approach.
all around approach. If your mind is not ready, your body cannot follow. If your body and your mind are ready, but your presentation around you is not ready. So because I play all the instruments, I play close to 30 instruments. Imagine that now I'm in a position that if I come onto the show, I can monitor and help balance something in the arrangement, or I know how to talk to the sound man, do some things to reinforce the frequencies of the musicians on stage. So you got to put all of that in there. Now, what do you do with all of that? Because I'm a high level improviser. I improvise like a jazz musician, or what you would expect a sax player or a guitarist to do or a trumpeter to do, I do with my mouth. Having said that, what do you do with it? Can't take it with you. And there's been no vehicle set up for teaching vocal improvisation, not just scatting, but riffing and rolling and all of the stuff that we know that we're used. That's the flavor. That's the juice on the song is the stuff, but no one teaches that specifically. So I said, well, I'm going to come up with something where you can just come out for a day and get your improv chops together. How do you make the end of that song sound a little better? How do you make the beginning of it sound a little better? How do you become that person? So I've had some people come out who are absolute beginners. And then I've had some people come out who were like advanced recording artists, and they just said, listen, I can do it all, but I want to work on my scatting, So singing fellowship and teaching singers to not be in competition with each other, but just to breed love and knowledge and get smarter and get better. That's been my goal.
So it's like a day camp for singers.
Come on now. There you go. That's what I'm going to call it. How about daycare?
Day camp for singers. Yeah, daycare for singers.
Daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Valentine's. It's a love care for singers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
true.
That way you're using your name and it's yours.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Valentine's love daycare. Bring your singers and drop them. Having no trouble with your singer? Drop them off at my camp. Come back and get them a few hours later. Okay.
Yeah. Let me show them love for the rest of the day. COVID just 3 years ago, COVID hit. How did that affect your life? What were some changes you had to make because of COVID?
Well, the first 5 months of COVID, I started writing a book because I really wasn't around people. I started a huge garden, went out there with my Father John. I dusted off the shotgun and the rifle. And just because I said, listen, with everything that happened in 2020, a zombie would not be beyond belief. Just be ready for whatever's coming. So 2020 affected my music in such a way that I spent like 8 hours a day practicing at the beginning of this. 8 hours a day, 4 hours every morning, 4 hours in the evening. I just practiced a lot. And I started writing a scale book, like to isolate some of the ideas that I was thinking about, just ways to help other people. Of course, there was nowhere to play. I think I played twice, maybe 3 times in 2020. All the jobs went screen dark. And so I lost thousands and thousands of dollars worth of work. I had concerts lined up the entire year. You're supposed to be here and there. I have a tour going here, this, that. I lost everything. So financially, it was a hard year. And musically, it was a hard year because I didn't get a chance to sit with other musicians and just keep creating. And I think that that's a part of what feeds us, is we feed off our audiences. Our audiences feed off us. It's a give and take relationship. And other musicians, we need that. We need to sit with each other. So yeah, definitely 2020 caused me to have to go inside, not outside, and spend my time developing.
Tell me, so when did you release the single Valentine? Because it came out in 2020.
Right before COVID. Right before COVID. It was hard. And people were like, it's a great song. I don't want to sing about love right now. I want to think about taking over the world, or, people were burning cities. I remember the summer of 2020 in Philadelphia, and you could hear the blowing up of mailboxes and blowing up ATMs. It sounded like a war zone in Philly, So yeah, it was
not the city of brotherly love.
The city of brotherly love was. Yeah, but they were loving something, but it wasn't being the brother for them. Yeah, Philly was downright dangerous in 2020. So, yeah, it was hard. And releasing a single right before that, I was like, wow, okay, I should have released a combat song or something, right? Because if I had known that was coming. I literally released it in February. And I think March is when things start getting crazy. March, things start getting crazy, and
I think
people's
it
minds were not
was,
quite there.
I think it was this time in
Hmm.
March of 2020 when
Yes,
everything had started to begin to shut down.
yes, yes.
So,
I had a I had an Al Jarreau tribute concert that was scheduled to be in March, I believe, and then they moved it to April. Then they moved it. People kept saying, "Don't worry, we're only going to be down for 2 weeks," and then they moved it to
mm,
yeah, they moved it to May, then to June, then July, and before you know it, it was just not going to
October,
happen.
November.
Yeah, yeah,
So looking
yeah.
back at it now, what are some
Uh-huh.
positives that you think came from you being isolated like that?
Hmm. Well, before I'm so blessed to talk about me, I'll say one of the greatest things that happened to my planet was the air never smelled better because people weren't out there driving around.
Hmm.
And I saw animals I hadn't seen in years reappear because there were no cars out there running them over. And seemed like there were a few less jets flying overhead. So I think the environment needs someone said it in a movie once. Uh, uh, they said every so often you need a good plague.
Evolution.
Yeah, you need something to shut everything down for just for a moment. So for me, the positive things that I take away from that is I was able to work on things on my violin that I wasn't able to work on because of time before, and just sit with myself and listen. I play better than I did pre-pandemic. I had a chance to work on my bass and work on my violin, and I would go out and run the hills. So I was making sure I took care of myself. Uh, I would say that it gave me an opportunity to call some musicians who I would never have met anywhere else because they were on tour. I could call people from who used to be in Michael's band and Chaka's band and this band and that band, and we would have these conversations. And so it gave me an opportunity to meet and grow in my musical conversations with people. Um, and of course, 2020, 2021, and two, we lost a lot of musicians. Just a few days ago, we lost Wayne Shorter, and he has traveled from this plane to the great plane beyond. And uh, it was a time of there's some legends who were on my list, like you had on your list, that I did not get a chance to work with, and Wayne Shorter is one of them. So it's like, so the good news about that is that energy doesn't stop. It keeps getting circled. So I keep hearing amazing young musicians who are coming out, and I'm like, wow, it came back. Listen to that. It came around. Listen to it. Wow. Okay. So good things, new ears, new players, the opportunity to try to reach out closer to family and make the phone calls and do things to just, like when you're not so busy, they say you can hear God better. Your ears are not hearing so much other stuff. You may actually hear something that's without inside you. So,
That is true, but I don't wait till I don't stop to wait and see when I'm not so busy. I just pay attention to when he's talking to me at all times.
come on.
Because
There you go.
I tell people, I say, you're waiting on God to talk to you, but maybe he's waiting on you to listen because he talked to
Come
you when
on. I
he
love
showed
that.
you that. Yeah,
Hmm.
he's talking to you when he showed you that the wind just blew through the trees. You probably just didn't see the
Yeah.
message he was trying to give you.
Mhm.
So he's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
talking. It's just maybe you're
Come
not
on
the
now.
one that's listening. So, that's what I tell
Yes.
people. And
Come
if
on.
they don't get
No,
that
I'm right
message,
there.
they may
Hmm.
get it when it's time for them to get it.
Yeah. Or
Because
they
people
have,
don't
like you
always
said.
hear you. And, because people
Uh-huh.
don't always hear God when he talked to them. And then they be wondering
Hmm.
why he didn't say nothing to them. So,
Come on.
maybe you're not just listening because
Come
you're
on.
waiting on this angel to come send this perfect message to you. But,
Come on.
God probably already sent that message to you by somebody you didn't want to get it from and you just didn't pay no attention to it. So he's like, well, I'm not going
Yeah.
to send it
Come on.
again. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, somebody listeing to this just heard something they
Yeah.
needed to hear. So when you hear it,
They
make
needed
sure
to
you
hear it. There
share.
you go.
Make sure
Right.
you share. So, patience is
Yes.
everything. I'm just saying, patience is everything.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm about to turn around and play this piano in a second. Yeah. Go ahead, brother.
uh,
You're right on. That's a right. That's a definitely that is the most important spin of the entire conversation. Is that
so,
it's not that the information is not there, it's that we may not be listening. So come on.
yep.
That was great. That was great stuff. Hmm.
Being the vintage legend of the game, and
Hmm.
let me explain. I use vintage because if they say wine doesn't get old, then I use vintage
Uh-huh.
because I'm like, I don't get
Hmm.
old. So I'll say vintage. And
Okay.
you've been in the game for a
Okay.
while. So everything
Hmm.
you've done only gets better as you get older. So
Hmm.
being a vintage legend in the game that you are, what are some
Hmm.
lessons that you've learned that you're passing down to other artists, people, not even just musicians, just people, period, as you come in, as they come into your circle, as they come to your table? Because like you stated, a lot of the people that Muhammad Ali, Dr.
Hmm.
Sabi, a lot of the people that you've came
Shirley
across, they
Chisholm.
gave you
Hmm.
knowledge. See,
Yeah.
we have more
Yeah.
names because the
Yeah.
journey
Hmm.
that you've
Hmm.
been on, it
Max
wasn't
Roach.
always on the road. And so, as
Hmm.
the journey
Hmm.
was not always on the road, you had people to get you back
Hmm.
on the road. So what are you doing,
Hmm.
and what are you
Hmm.
knowledge that you're passing down? How do you pass it down, and what does it look like uh, for the future? How is it going to be for you, for the next person you come into contact to? What's the process that you go through when you're getting ready to do that? For the people that's listening, for someone who wants to do, uh, because people, like we just said, people aren't always listening. So for the ones that are listening now, what is some advice that you can give them for situations like that you've been in?
You are unique. You are special. You have something magical, wonderful, and blessed to offer to this world. It may not be on the lower shelf. You may have to go to shelf number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You may have to stand on the shoulders of someone to get to the shelf because it's not so high. The one thing I can guarantee you is
Yep.
that everything you need to share is not on the bottom shelf, and this means you need to ask for help. And I tell everybody, find a mentor, and don't expect this mentor to just give you your whole life plan and set everything up for you and put you where you're supposed to go. But you need to find people who have done some of what you need to do and follow. Like in my time, not that this isn't my time, but in my earlier youth, I, I would tell somebody, listen, I can cut your grass, or I can help you with this, or I would just to spend time around some of the right people. Sometimes I would say, listen, I'll do something just to be around, just to be around. When I was 16 years old, my very first time I ever get paid to do anything in the arts, I was rolling cables for a bass player with this really long black hair, and my only job was to help him set up his stuff. That was Verdine White of Earth, Wind and Fire. So my exposure and experience says to me when I say to an artist who's developing, a new craftsman, and what I'm going to say to you is you need to remember that you don't get to the top shelf without getting a little help. You need a ladder. You need people's shoulders to stand on. You need some advice. This is an interesting generation because so many of them have been told, no, don't listen to anybody. Just do it yourself. You don't need to study anything that's been done. And what that does is those people who are telling you that are setting you up for traps because if you don't know
Yep.
what happened before, you are doomed to replicate it. So I would say the number one thing is find yourself mentorship, find yourself models, find people who've done what you want to do and follow some of what they've done. Take lessons in everything. I have degrees in music. I've written compositions. I've performed on at Lincoln Center, on Broadway. I've done all kinds of things. I've been on Madison Square Garden stage. I've been on the Nuremberg Opera House stage. I still take lessons. I still take lessons. I still call up somebody to take a lesson. Now, sometimes they don't want to teach me. They're like, wait a minute, you want to take a lesson? Nah, not t- no. You know, but I tell people, listen, I'm here because you have something gift, maybe one aspect of something you do I don't do. I just would like to learn it. That's all. Don't teach me for what I've done because you haven't seen everywhere I'm going. So just go ahead and teach me. I want to take lessons in everything. And so I remember when I started taking lessons in bass and because I wanted to understand what was happening in my music and understand the bass parts better. Now I teach bass lessons. It's like, how does that happen? But I remember when I first started voice, then became a voice teacher. I remember when I started violin, became a violin teacher. So there's so much to learn. Like, we're not done. You're not done. You're not done. And you might think you're the end all. Somebody brought a really budding, fairly famous 16-year-old to me once. And he needed to change a few things in how he was approaching his music. And he went to his father and said, I don't want to relearn anything. I don't want to improve any. I feel like I do it all already. And he stayed right at the level where he was at. He thought that at 15, you know it all. I guarantee you don't. Stevie Wonder, one of the greatest composers and performers of the 20th century, is still learning. These people are still going out trying to get new information. So that would be my piece to you is as you're putting your budget together and your marketing budget and your advertising budget, figuring out what clothes you're going to wear and what fly rides you're going to do and what you're going to have around you, your entourage, make sure that you're making time to actually study and learn. Keep learning, keep studying, keep learning, keep studying. And you're going to get a lot of information. And the more you get, it helps you to really not just have to repeat what they did. And it helps you to find your original space that's right through the middle of that. That's going to turn you into something incredible.
That's amazing advice. Make sure y'all are listening. I'm going to leave you and tell y'all what's for you is for you. Can't nobody take it from you. You just have to be patient enough to know that it's only going to happen when it's supposed to happen. No matter how fast you walk, no matter how slow you walk, it's still going to happen when it's supposed to happen. With that being said, Owen, I appreciate you taking the time to stop by and talk with me today, talk to us today. If there's anything you need, please let me know. I'll be willing to help you and assist you any way I can. Please take the time to promote.
Tell a few people? Can I tell them where to go? Stop by The Vocal Scientist, THE, Vocal, VOCAL, SCIENTIST. The Vocal Scientist. Stop by that on Instagram. Also on thevocalscientist.com. You can start there. Stop by The Owen Valentine and go on there, and you'll find him find me on Instagram and on Facebook. Take a moment to Google me, because anytime you Google me, that pushes me a little higher up in the ratings. And I do believe that I have a message worth hearing. So please help me so I can help some others. And you may want to look up SCAT Camp on Instagram, on IG, and you'll see a little page that I have on there. And that's going to be a growing thing. And so right now it's local to Philadelphia, but I intend to take the show on the road. So we will be coming to your city soon. So look out for SCAT Camp, and also look out for The Vocal Scientist. And as a musician, time to get this show moving again. So look out for the Owen Valentine and any performances that are coming up in your area, whether it's in jazz or hip hop or R&B or reggae or whatever the music is. I just only guarantee that you can have a great time. And if you're local to the East Coast, try to find me. I'm not that hard to find.
Closing quote for you all today. It's not your job to be likable. It's your job to be yourself. Someone will like you anyway. From Miss Shamanande Ngozi Adichie. Y'all have a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate y'all joining us today. And when I see you, I'm going to say, let's get busy and let's get it. Y'all have a good one. Mr. Owen, I appreciate you joining.
Wonderful having you on. Have a great day.